Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Prashant Kumar Sinha, and with me is R.S. Raghu, bringing glimpses of major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar calls upon Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Dr. Jaishankar says visit is aimed at continuing bilateral progress between the two countries. Defence Minister of India Rajnath Singh emphasizes on self-reliance in view of the ongoing Russia and Ukraine conflict. India and Japan today complete 70 years of diplomatic relations. Prime Minister Modi says ties between the two countries deepened in every sphere, including people-to-people contacts. External Affairs Ministry says it is not opportune time for resumption of issuance of tourist visas for China due to COVID pandemic. And UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to meet Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky today. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar called on Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in Dhaka today. Addressing the media after the meeting, Dr. Jaishankar said that he conveyed personal greetings and good wishes from Prime Minister Modi to Prime Minister Hasina. Dr. Jaishankar said that India looks forward to her visit at a date convenient to her. During the meeting, Dr. Jaishankar and Prime Minister Hasina discussed issues related to the bilateral ties between the two countries as well as regional and global issues. Dr. Jaishankar said that his visit is aimed at continuing the bilateral progress in deepening engagements between the two countries. He said India is waiting to welcome Bangladesh Foreign Minister Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen to the 7th meeting of the Joint Consultative Committee, which will lay the ground to take India-Bangladesh ties to the next level. External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar expressed satisfaction that the decision taken during the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Bangladesh last year to celebrate Maitri Divas, Friendship Day, at 18 world capitals apart from Dhaka and Delhi was successfully accomplished. He also expressed happiness over the establishment of the first Bangabandhu Chair in India, Subarna Jayanti Scholarship for Bangladeshi students, and Bangabandhu Bapu Digital Exhibition in the recent past. Dr. Jaishankar expressed satisfaction that trade, disbursement of loans for bilateral projects, travel services and investment are now at a new height after recovering from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. He expressed hope that many of the projects, including in the power and energy sector and connectivity in Bangladesh, will see early commissioning. Highlighting the importance of sub-regional cooperation, Dr. Jaishankar said that India looks forward to a stronger sub-regional cooperation in connectivity and other areas. He said that the energy sector, particularly the hydropower domain, offers opportunities for mutually beneficial cooperation between the two countries. He further said India is a large producer and consumer of power and it looks forward to working together, especially in the BBIN, that is Bhutan, Bangladesh, India and Nepal framework. He said India would continue to take the lead to structure progressive partnerships of production, transmission and trade in this region. Dr. Jaishankar will leave Dhaka tomorrow for his next leg of visit to Bhutan.
In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion of India-Bangladesh relations on upswing. In conversation are Beena Sikri, former diplomat, and Sanjay Jha, journalist.
India and Bangladesh bonds of history, language, culture, and multitude of other commonalities. The excellent bilateral ties reflect an all-encompassing partnership based on sovereignty, equality, trust, and understanding that goes far beyond the strategic partnership which happens between two countries. In fact, the national anthems of the two countries were written by great Rabindranath Tagore, who also wrote India and Bangladesh, both countries, national anthem. Two countries are organically linked with their common heritage and shared history, common memories of tragic loss, and separation of families on a massive scale following the partition of India in 1947. Today, Indian Foreign Minister is in Dhaka and the Bangladeshi Foreign Minister has welcomed him and said that both sides would discuss all major bilateral issues. How important do you think is this trip for both countries?
I think it's a very important visit for many reasons. I think it highlights the significance that both countries attach to their bilateral relations, that they want to keep them at a very high level of achievement and continuous progress and strengthening and development for the mutual benefit of both countries and the peoples of both countries. I think we must see that now the world, South Asia, we're just coming out of COVID and getting back into offline meetings, getting back into physical meetings. And our External Affairs Minister, Shri Subrahmanyam Jaishankar, has chosen Bangladesh and Bhutan as almost the first call because, there was so much going on earlier because of the Ukraine crisis, because of there was the 2+2 with America and so on. But now, back in India, we have revived the focus on India's neighborhood first policy. This is the first significance of his visit, that he's revived the focus on the neighborhood first policy. Secondly, with Bangladesh, the visit is to extend the invitation to Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to visit India about 3 months from now, maybe in July. We will hear more details about that very soon. And that itself is significant because last year our Prime Minister was in Dhaka in March 2021 on the wonderful occasion of the Golden Jubilee of the liberation of Bangladesh. And that was a great occasion because in 1971, India and Bangladesh were shoulder by shoulder in the liberation war. And 50 years later, in 2021, India and Bangladesh were again together at the prime ministerial level to celebrate the Golden Jubilee and to bring the focus again on India-Bangladesh bilateral relations. So that is the great significance of our External Affairs Minister's visit. Certainly, before Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina comes to India, there will be another meeting of the joint committee between India and Bangladesh, which reviews the cooperation in all areas of the bilateral relationship. There's been a great deal of progress in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of connectivity, in terms of trade, in terms of cooperation in every field. And I think the focus on implementation and quick implementation is one of the areas that Government of India has decided to give great importance to. We saw recently that in Delhi, a special committee has been set up, an interministerial committee chaired by the Foreign Secretary of India on implementation of decisions taken regarding neighbors. And this brings in the secretaries of all the relevant ministries of the government, whether it be water resources or commerce or industrial development or, health and agriculture and so many other areas which reflect the diverse and multi-faceted nature of the relationship with Bangladesh and other neighbors. So I think this has greatly hastened the process of implementation, and even the very first meeting, so many issues which were pending for a long time were solved between the secretaries. This shows the seriousness of the commitment of the Government of India. So I think this sense of commitment and importance will be conveyed certainly by External Affairs Minister during his visit to Bangladesh and tomorrow in Bhutan as well. I think I mentioned Bhutan also because one of the very important dimensions of the India-Bangladesh relationship is the sub-regional cooperation that has developed to the great advantage and mutual benefit of all participants. This is when you look at Bangladesh, Bhutan, India and Nepal, the BBIN region. And we have seen in this region that tremendous success has been made. The motor vehicles agreement has been agreed upon, and then the sale and purchase of power, joining the electricity grids of these countries so that each country, according to its own need and requirements, can purchase and sell electricity power as needed. And we know that with Bangladesh being one of the path-breaking developments where we first developed the mechanism and the methodology for sale of electricity to Bangladesh, and in the southwest region of Bangladesh, Khulna region, it has made great impact because it has brought industry to that region, it has helped school children, it has helped the medical treatment, it has helped hospitals, and it has really, really made tremendous breakthrough. But this is now being extended not only to other parts of Bangladesh, to Tripura, to the eastern borders between India and Bangladesh, but also to BBIN. And Bhutan can sell power to Bangladesh coming through India. Nepal can buy power from Bangladesh. India has, of course, got a very good power exchange agreement with Nepal as well. And India may develop hydroelectric power plants in Arunachal Pradesh and transmit the electricity through Bangladesh. There's so much potential for it that is there. So this is a great booster for the trade and economic cooperation between India and Bangladesh. But other than this, let's take even the question of air connectivity. Let's take the question of the $8 billion credit line, series of credit lines that India has given to Bangladesh, with the help of which all this connectivity and infrastructure is being developed. In the private sector, we've seen in air connectivity that airline Indigo has decided to connect Dhaka, connect Bangladesh by air to 70 cities in India through a hub either in Hyderabad or Delhi or other places. Now, this is going to be a great boost to the great interest of Bangladesh citizens to visit India. We do know that the Indian embassy issues 1.5 million visas a year to Bangladesh citizens to visit India. They come for studies, for medical treatment, for pilgrimage, for trade, and of course just for tourism. And this has been a great symbol of the dynamism with which the India-Bangladesh relations have developed. So I think there is no area of cooperation that has been left out really between India and Bangladesh, and this is very significant and symbolic in our bilateral relationship.
Absolutely. And Mr. Sikri, as you rightly pointed out, Bangladesh and India have been enjoying a sweet bilateral relationship, and the bonhomie scaled new heights in 2021, which marked 50 years of the ties. The year 2021 is a momentous one for India and Bangladesh as they jointly celebrated the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations, the golden jubilee of Bangladesh independence from Pakistan, and the birth centenary of its father of nation, Bandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So we see in last many years, India and Bangladesh working together. India and Bangladesh obviously share a very long international border, around 4,000 kilometer long. It's the fifth longest land border in the world, with West Bengal having the highest length with 2,200 kilometers. And in this context, security and border management remains a big issue between two countries. You have rightly pointed out that both the countries have been working in this context. But how do you see cooperation between two countries with such visits on the border management?
I think border management is, as you said, a very significant area because it concerns the security of both countries, and each country is interested certainly in maintaining a peaceful and harmonious border. I think this is another area on which India and Bangladesh have over the years made tremendous progress in sorting out a lot of difficulties that arose from time to time, and we have brought in a very creative and mutually beneficial systems of border management, like for example the coordinated border patrolling, where we coordinate between the BSF on the India side and the border guards Bangladesh on that side, and we coordinate the patrolling and the timings and make sure that there is no illegal activity, there is no breach of security and so on. Of course, we have got a fence along much of the border, but despite all that, there are invariably incidents which take place, and I think that we need to put in place a system that whenever an incident does take place at the border, there is immediately a joint approach to understanding by the authorities on both sides why did the incident take place and what is being done to overcome the difficulty that any individual or any group of people may have faced. Because that very often these incidents take place at night, and they are involving illegal activities, whether it is cattle smuggling or goods smuggling or illegal trade and so on, or people trying to walk across without a visa and so on and so forth. And when it takes place at night, the people who are doing all this at night, they are well armed, and whereas the border security forces have also by bilateral agreement agreed that they will not use any lethal weapons. But then you have a situation where if a border patrol is attacked, then there is always a problem and somebody gets hurt and so on. People have lost their lives. But I think these incidents with such a long border are fairly inevitable, but we need to approach them in a way that they do not cause any misunderstanding between the people. Because I know that, even when I was in Dhaka, that what happened, there's some incident at the border, somebody has got hurt, somebody has lost their life. It is flashed in the newspapers. Oh, this has happened, this one Bangladesh citizen has died. But that's not the whole story. The whole story should be given after agreement by both sides. What is the reason? Why did it take place? What, at night or in the daytime, or on the Indian side, Bangladesh side, and what the two sides have jointly decided to tackle, how to tackle that incident. So this is not a complicated method. It just takes a couple of hours of, just agreeing on what is happening, and with that they can always solve the matter. So I think that while there has been tremendous improvements, it still gets highlighted in the press if there's even one or two or three incidents a year of such a kind, it gets highlighted and causes a lot of sensitivity. So we need to give due attention to the sensitivities and find a methodology that will solve this problem, or show what both sides have agreed to do on each and every incident whenever it occurs. But I must say that on things like illegal insurgent groups and so on, the situation today is a vast improvement on what it was, a decade or so ago, or maybe 15 years ago. And we'd be happy that really think that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, under her leadership, there is no interest at all in supporting any illegal insurgent groups from India or having them stay on Bangladesh soil. So in that sense, the situation is definitely a great improvement.
Absolutely. Situation, especially about this insurgency, the both countries are working very closely. India and Bangladesh are celebrating the 50th anniversary of their diplomatic relations. The two countries bonded by nature, history and culture should be bold enough to go for new areas of cooperation and connectivity, as it is the key apparatus to change the fate of the region. The relationship between two countries just does not benefit two countries, but the other countries in the region. Thank you very much for your time, Ambassador Sikri.
Thank you.
Defense Minister Rajnath Singh today said that the ongoing Russia and Ukraine conflict has once again highlighted that being self-reliant without dependencies is a vital necessity. Indian Navy, which has been at the forefront of Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative of the government, must continue to lead the way and remain a necessary guarantor of India's maritime trade, security and national prosperity. Addressing the concluding session of the Naval Commanders Conference in New Delhi, Mr. Singh said, India's maritime character and its vital geostrategic location have played a primary role in our growth as a nation and evolution as a civilization.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed happiness over 70 years of establishment of diplomatic relations between India and Japan today. In a series of tweets, Prime Minister Modi said that the ties between the two countries have deepened in every sphere, whether strategic, economic or people-to-people contacts. Mr. Modi said the recent visit of Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida to India for the annual summit laid out a roadmap for deepening the special strategic and global partnership in a post-COVID world. Prime Minister Modi said he looks forward to continue working with PM Kishida to realize that objective. United States President Joe Biden has announced that he will meet India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in May. In a statement, the White House announced that President Biden will also meet with the leaders of the Quad grouping of Australia, Japan, India and the United States in his upcoming visit to Tokyo. President Biden will visit the Republic of Korea and Japan from the 20th to the 24th of May to further deepen ties with them. The statement added that the trip will advance the United States' rock-solid commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has asserted that India will engage with the world on its own terms and era of dictation is over. He said it is better to engage with the world on the basis of who we are rather than try to please the world as a pale imitation of who they are. Addressing the Raisina dialogue, Dr. Jaishankar said, the idea that others define us and we need approval is an era that we need to put behind us. Dr. Jaishankar also said, in the next 25 years, India should be at the next stage of globalization. External Affairs Ministry today said that it is not the opportune time for resumption of issuance of tourist visas for China due to COVID pandemic. Briefing media in New Delhi this evening, MEA spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said China has itself suspended issue of most types of visas to Indians since November 2020. Replying to a query, Mr. Bagchi said, Pakistan has no locus standi to comment on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Jammu and Kashmir. He said the reception that Mr. Modi received in J&K and the development projects that he inaugurated is a clear answer to any question that may be raised about his visit. The spokesman also said some components of Vande Bharat train are made in Ukraine, but due to the ongoing conflict, delivery schedule has been impacted. He said India is looking for options for timely delivery.
Chinese capital Beijing is bracing up for incipient rise in COVID cases by closing many public venues, cancelling large events, shifting schools to online mode amid reports of price rise in shops as authorities scrambled to stabilize supply and to keep the delivery chain intact. Fears that the capital could head into a lockdown prompted widespread stockpiling, leading to shortages in some supermarkets. Chinese authorities have said they are cracking down on price gouging as food shortages in Shanghai due to lockdown continue and fears in Beijing caused a rush to supermarkets. A report from our Beijing correspondent.
Taking a cue from poorly managed lockdown in Shanghai and the northeastern province of Jilin, Beijing has moved ever faster to halt a growing outbreak as it has reported nearly 180 cases in this week. Authorities are mass testing more than 20 million people across Beijing 3 times and suspended all mass gatherings and events. On Thursday, the city reported 50 new cases. Authorities locked down some individual residential buildings, office blocks and a university and closed some public spaces and venues. To stem infections in schools, major districts in Beijing have suspended in-person school classes of middle and primary schools and kindergartens and started online teaching. Meanwhile, Shanghai's 25 million residents have been in lockdown for weeks with major food shortages, poor quality of food, delivery issues and huge price surge. Anshuman Mishra for World News, AIR, Beijing.
This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres will meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba in Kiev today. Mr. Guterres is also expected to make a field visit. He arrived in Ukraine following talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. In a tweet, the UN chief said they will continue their work to expand humanitarian support and secure the evacuation of civilians from conflict zones. The sooner this war ends, the better for the sake of Ukraine, Russia and the world, Mr. Guterres added. Earlier, the UN chief met Russian President in the Kremlin to discuss the situation in Ukraine. According to a statement on his meeting with President Putin, Mr. Guterres reiterated that UN's position on Ukraine and they discussed the proposals for humanitarian assistance and evacuation of civilians from conflict zones, namely in relation to the situation in Mariupol. UN spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric said they agreed in principle that the UN and the International Committee of the Red Cross should be involved in the evacuation of civilians from the Azovstal steel complex. Moderna today asked U.S. regulators to authorize low doses of its COVID-19 vaccine for children younger than 6 years, a long-awaited move toward potentially opening shots for millions of dots by this summer. Moderna submitted data to the Food and Drug Administration that it hopes will prove 2 low-dose shots can protect babies, toddlers and preschoolers, albeit not as effectively during the Omicron surge as earlier in the pandemic. Dr. Paul Burton, Moderna's chief medical officer, said that there is an important unmet medical need here with these youngest kids. Now only children aged 5 years or older can be vaccinated in the U.S. using Pfizer's vaccine, leaving 18 million younger tots unprotected.
Veteran Hong Kong actor Kenneth Tsang died while in a COVID-19 quarantine hotel in South Chinese City, local media reported today. Tsang was best known internationally for his action roles in the 2002 James Bond film Die Another Day, John Woo's The Killer in 1989, Rush Hour 2 in 2001 starring Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. Tsang had been undergoing 7 days of quarantine after returning from Singapore on Monday and was found collapsed on the floor of his hotel room by staff yesterday, according to the local media. No cause of death was given and the paper said he had tested negative for the virus and had no underlying medical conditions. In Asia Championships in Manila, India's ace shuttler PV Sindhu advanced in quarter-final, beating lowly ranked Yan Jocelyn of Singapore Hui by straight set 21-16, 21-16 in women's single. Sindhu will face He Piang-Xiao in quarter-final clash. In men's doubles, Indian duo Rangi Reddy and Chirag Shetty also registered a thumping straight set win over Akira Koga and Taichi Saito of Japan by 21-17, 21-15. However, Saina Nehwal's dream of claiming her 4th medal in the prestigious tournament ended after she ran out of steam to eventually lose 21-12, 7-21, 13-21 to 22-year-old Chinese Wang Xi, ranked 16th in the world. Another Indian shuttler, Kidambi Shrikant, also crashed out of the tournament.
Now a report from the business desk.
The Sensex gained 702 points or 1.23% to close at 57,521, while the Nifty surged 207 points or 1.21% to finish at 17,245. In global share markets, Asian share markets posted gains. Japan's Nikkei 225 surged 1.8%, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index climbed 1.7%, and South Korea's Kospi gained 1.1%. China's Shanghai Composite Index rose 0.6%, and Singapore's Straits Times settled 0.4% up. European share markets were also up in intraday trade. Oil prices fell around 0.5% amid caution about fall in oil demand in China due to economic impact of COVID-19 restrictions. However, supply worries due to Russia-Ukraine conflict capped the losses. In intraday trade, Brent crude was trading around $104.70 per barrel. And in the forex market, the rupee appreciated 4 paisa against the US dollar. The domestic currency finished at 76 rupees and 49 paisa against the American unit. Anubha Rohatgi for World News, All India Radio.
The indigenous aircraft carrier Vikrant, being built by the Cochin Shipyard Limited, will be handed over to the Indian Navy by August this year. Addressing a press conference, Technical Director of the Cochin Shipyard Bijoy Bhoskar said the final sea trial of the IAC will take place next month. He said the yard is in the process of setting up a new dry dock with a 600-ton gantry crane capable of handling vessels up to Suezmax aircraft carriers of 70,000 tons displacement, jack-up rigs and LNG vessels. The International Ship Repair Facility being established by the shipyard will have a 6,000-ton ship lift, 6 workstations besides a total outfitting berth of 1,500 meters. The shipyard enjoys 40% market share of the country's shipbuilding industry and has so far built and exported 47 vessels to the countries like Norway, the Netherlands, Germany, United States, Saudi Arabia and UAE. He said the yard is also gearing up to cater to the country's cruise market, which has the potential to grow 8-fold over the next decade.
In Afghanistan, at least 9 people were killed and 13 others were injured in 2 blasts this evening, local media reported, citing security officials. The explosions occurred in the Mazar-e-Sharif area of the Balkh province. According to Tolo News, both of the blasts targeted public transportation. Provincial health officials confirmed that hospitals had received the bodies of the deceased and were treating the injured. Meanwhile, no group has claimed responsibility for the blasts.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. Let us take a look at the press reports on China. CNN writes China grapples with political challenges as COVID death toll mounts. Reuters reports millions of people in Beijing took their second COVID-19 test of the week on Wednesday amid specter of a citywide lockdown. Financial Times writes Chinese policymakers clash over how to counter property slump and over economic stimulus to counter the economic slowdown. The Kathmandu Post writes that a cabinet meeting on Tuesday took the decision to this effect with a view to controlling consumption of fuel, which is straining the national coffers. The News International reports that China on Wednesday demanded that the Pakistani side should immediately make a thorough investigation in the Karachi University suicide attack. Times of Islamabad reports that Pakistan and US Navy have conducted bilateral naval exercise inspired union in the North Arabian Sea.
And now a quick look at the headlines once again. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar calls upon Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Dr. Jaishankar says visit aimed at continuing bilateral progress between the two countries. Defense Minister of India Rajnath Singh emphasizes on self-reliance in view of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. India and Japan today complete 70 years of diplomatic relations. Prime Minister Modi says ties between the two countries deepened in every sphere, including people-to-people contacts. External Affairs Ministry says it is not opportune time for resumption of issuance of tourist visas for China due to COVID-19 pandemic. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky today. And now, before we end, let's listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnava Jan, by artists from Bangladesh. with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of the World News.